Professor Njuguna Ndung'u, the Governor of the Central Bank of Kenya, eminent ambassadors and our international development partners, Mr. John Wanyela, Chairman, Anti-Money Laundering Advisory Board, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Now, it is my pleasure to be with you this morning at this very important and strategic forum and to preside over the role of the National Sensation Program to raise awareness on anti-money laundering and combating financing of terrorism for reporting institutions and key stakeholders in the country's anti-money laundering regime. I must say that I'm not very new to this process. As Honorable, as Mr. Njuguna Ndung'u told you, I have been involved in trying to bring enactment of the Anti-Money Laundering and Proceeds of Crime Act since the other parliament. In fact, I was the chairman of the Finance Committee initiating the enactment of that law. And I must tell you that it was not an easy sailing law to enact, because there was a lot of resistance, there was a lot of suspicion. One of the areas of suspicion was that this law was foreign-driven, that it was not in the interest of the country, and that it was targeting certain groups in Kenya. And this became a very, very hot issue in Parliament, and we did not manage to push the bill through until this Parliament, that we managed to pass it, when we actually managed to convince ourselves that this was not a foreign-driven act, that it was meant to serve the interest of Kenya if Kenya wanted to become a financial hub of Eastern and Central Africa, and that we needed to clean up our systems, because when we were doing investigations during my chairmanship of Finance Committee, we came across some issues we were investigating, where there was clear money laundering activities going on in some banks. And yet, there was no law. There was no anti-money laundering law, so there was no way we could deal with it. And yet we knew that that kind of money laundering was not in the best interest of our country. So this is something which is very dear to me, even though now I just came officially to present to you our view as the Minister of Finance. So I just wanted to say that, and then I now proceed to read the speech. Let me start by taking this early opportunity to thank all of those in attendance today for taking time out of their busy schedules to participate in this forum. In addition, I would like to extend my gratitude to our international development partners who have been at our side as we seek to put in place a robust anti-money laundering framework to protect and sustain the integrity of Kenya's financial sector, and in particular to insulate our financial system against illicit financial crimes of money laundering and the financing of terrorism. Today's forum marks a critical milestone in the achievement and efforts made so far on this journey of combating money laundering and terrorism financing in the country. As you are well aware, one of the main agendas for today's forum is to officially launch the anti-money laundering sensation to be undertaken by the Kenya School of Monetary Studies in conjunction with the Financial Reporting Center and the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime. By way of reminder, especially for those who may not be aware, the Anti-Money Laundering Advisory Board is established under Section 49 of the Proceeds of Crime Anti-Money Laundering Act 2009. The board's mandate is to advise the directors of the Financial Reporting Center generally on the performance of his functions and the exercise of his powers under the Act. The Anti-Money Laundering Board was officially launched by the Deputy Prime Minister and the then Minister of Finance, Honorable Oburu Odinga, on 24th June 2011. The Anti-Money Laundering Board brings together different players from the public and private sectors. The Financial Reporting Center, Kenya's Financial Intelligence Unit, is established under Section 21 of the Proceeds of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering Act 2009. The Financial Reporting Center is an independent body whose principal mandate is to assist in the identification of the proceeds of crime and combating money laundering. One of the other important functions that the Financial Reporting Center is mandated to undertake is to design training requirements and provide training for reporting institutions. The Financial Reporting Center became operational on 12th April 2012 after the Anti-Money Laundering Advisory Board mandated its immediate operationalization. The Advisory Board is chaired by Mr. John Wanyela, who is here, while the Financial Reporting Center is operating under the leadership of the interim Director Jackson Kitili. Ladies and gentlemen, my key message today is to emphasize the government's commitment towards protecting the integrity of the country's financial sector. Under our National Development Blueprint, Vision 2030, Kenya seeks to establish itself as a regional trade and financial services hub, with the financial sector being the key pillar of economic growth and development. As you are aware, the financial services sector plays a vital role in creating a globally competitive environment that promotes high levels of integrity and that will enable the financing of Kenya's investment needs. This calls for a financial system that is stable, efficient, and which enhances access to financial services. In meeting the objectives of Vision 2030, the financial sector continues to institute a number of reforms aimed at enhancing the financial sector infrastructure. Anti-money laundering and combating terrorism financing measures are not only a country's or a region's concern, but a global concern involving the whole world. In this regard, as a member of the community of nations and as a regional financial services hub, it is therefore imperative that we comprehensively address the twin threats of money laundering and the financing of terrorism. To address some of these concerns, Parliament enacted the Proceeds of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering Act 2009. This legislation, which came into effect in June 2010, is a comprehensive framework which provides for measures to deter, detect, and defeat money laundering activities. The government is also seeking to facilitate the enactment of legislation that will criminalize the financing of terrorism. As you are aware, Parliament last week passed the Prevention of Terrorism Bill 2012, and the bill is now only awaiting presidential assent. And that, I'm very sure, is forthcoming. The President is going to sign it. We are hopeful that this legislation, which provides for measures that will enable the detection and prevention of terrorism activities, will ensure that Kenya meets international standards insofar as combating financing of terrorism measures are concerned. The two pieces of legislation, that is POCAMLA and PTB, will be the cornerstones of the country's anti-money laundering and the prevention of financing of terrorism infrastructure. The legislations will, however, be of little use unless there are systematic efforts to facilitate their implementation. Today's National Stakeholder Forum is therefore a major development milestone in the country's anti-money laundering infrastructure as going forward, we expect to have reporting institutions which are well sensitized on the subject of anti-money laundering and combating financing of terrorism, thus enabling them to understand and to implement their obligations under the Process of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering Act 2009. I'm informed that the Financial Reporting Center last week released draft anti-money laundering regulations under the Act to stakeholders and to the public for comments. I urge you, and indeed all other players to whom the Act applies, to take this opportunity to engage with the Financial Reporting Center so as to ensure that the special circumstances pertaining to your respective sectors are taken into account when the regulations are eventually promulgated. Ladies and gentlemen, the initiatives to combat money laundering and terrorism financing call for greater strategic action, more intensified efforts, and better coordination amongst key stakeholders. And this, therefore, brings me to my second key message to this forum. For the government to achieve its objectives, there has to be a strategic partnership between the government and the private financial sector. I cannot stress anymore the significance of an effective partnership between the two sectors in combating illicit financial activities in Kenya. We will also expect our development partners to play an important collaborative role in nurturing this partnership. The responsibility of taking specific and timely action to prevent the national financial system from reputation and legal damage rests mainly with the financial institutions in the first instance. Banks, in particular, bear this responsibility because of the nature of the services and products they offer to their customers and because of the type of clientele they serve. As emphasized herein before, our success in tackling illicit financial crimes will depend on the strategic partnership we forge before going forward. We recognize the efforts the private sector has put in place so far in protecting the financial sector and urge for your continued support and cooperation. The government will, on its part, continue taking a lead role in enhancing the integrity of the country's financial sector and in ensuring that Kenya becomes compliant with international best practice requirements in the prevention of money laundering and the financing of terrorism. This will no doubt propel the country as the region's financial hub. As the government undertakes key measures to fast-track the development of Kenya's anti-AML and CFT regime, we will work closely with our development partners to strengthen the country's anti-money laundering framework and to further develop the institutional capacity of reporting institutions, financial sector regulators, supervisors, the FRC, law enforcement agencies, and prosecutors, amongst others. As we launch the National Anti-Money Laundering Sensation Awareness, we are today also launching a collaborative program between the Government of Kenya and Danish government. The Kenya School of Monetary Studies, working with the Financial Reporting Center, with the support of the Danish government, is embarking on an extensive AML-CFT awareness-raising program. The program, which will run over a period of 2 years, aims to raise awareness within as well as train reporting entities of their obligations under the law. A well-sensitized reporting sector will greatly strengthen the country's AML-CFT institutional framework. The program is also aimed at building capacity within law enforcement authorities and the FRC personnel on anti-money laundering activities. This will enable these two important players play an active role in deterring and detecting money laundering activities. At this juncture, I would like to thank the Danish government for their support in this area. We will work with them and other development partners to build capacity and strengthen the integrity of our financial system. Ladies and gentlemen, with those few remarks, it is now my pleasure, I don't know whether they were few, but it is now my pleasure and honor to declare this workshop officially opened and to wish all of you fruitful deliberations. Thank you.